Francis, and she is joining us today for Coffee Talk Season 2, Episode 2. So today, it's all about the environment's vibe, the importance of the environment's vibe. So I thought we would start off. It's almost Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, Kwanzaa. It's the holiday season. So Ashley, what is your favorite vibe to be in the holiday season? So one of mine is I love being wrapped up on the couch, all the blankets, the lights off, cozy. The Christmas lights on, cozy, 100%. That is my personal favorite vibe during the holiday season. What's yours?
I agree with the cozy vibe. I really particularly like dark cozy. So when you go into like a restaurant or a home and it's like dimmed light and like a fireplace.
Low lighting.
We went to, my sister and I went to a place in the city recently, and it was like you walk in and it's actually really dark. When you first walk in, I'm like, oh, are we in the right place? But then you turn the corner and there's this big, nice fireplace and a very cozy couch. So I like that. I like it when it's like cozy, warm.
But it's all of it, right? It's like, it's the temperature, it's the smell. Because you guys got some like warm drinks while you were there.
We had coffee, we had French onion soup, so that's good.
Yeah, so it's the smell, it's the temperature, it's the texture, it's the lighting, it's the sound, like the ambiance. So the environment's vibe is truly important. That's not always the most scientific way we can describe it, but all of the research points to the importance of an environment's vibe. And Ashley, you speak several languages, you're an ESL instructor, you're in a bicultural marriage, and you have bicultural children, you've lived a bunch of different places, and so we're going to talk a little bit about all of the vibes of the different environments you've experienced. So from being a language student and living in a different country, could you talk a little bit about your experience not stateside and kind of the vibe that you experienced and kind of those ups and downs?
Okay. So the first place I lived was Lebanon. And I remember before I moved to Lebanon, it's like you're still learning about yourself. What is your norm? But when you live in one place, you don't even know that there's different norms. And so I think my norm was suburban, obviously American. I was in Massachusetts, so this very independent culture and cold. Very cold. And always thinking about yourself and not really thinking about how do I make people feel welcome to come to my home or to an experience. It's just you're doing your thing. So when I got to Lebanon and everything is communal, it was opposite from my growing up experience.
Yeah. So
they love to be around people. They are professionals at hosting and welcoming.
Oh my gosh.
Great food. I mean, Beirut has been listed as the International Food City of the World, I think at least twice. Definitely once in 2013, I believe. We'll have to fact check that. I think it's that year because I remember that's the year I graduated high school, but I don't know. We'll have to look again. But so they are very warm. And I lived with 12. I was the 12th girl living in the dorm. So I lived with 11 other girls.
Oh my gosh.
So, and I was one of the college students, but most of them were doctors because it was right near a hospital.
Oh, cool.
Because the school, it's a hospital, and then the school that's attached to it is a very large university, and all of the students who want to go to that hospital go to this school for pre-med.
Oh my gosh.
So I was just living with a bunch of doctors, and so the vibe was stress and busyness.
Well, and the girls that you lived with, were there other international students, or were they all of common language and you're trying to understand? Like, what did that look like?
I was the only Caucasian.
Okay.
There were other Egyptians and maybe some other people from the Middle East, and my specific roommate was Syrian.
Okay.
So everyone spoke Arabic except for me.
And you're in language school.
Yeah.
Learning Arabic as you're immersed in an area that everybody speaks Arabic and also a high stress environment, and also the cultural and societal norms are completely different. It sounds a lot like what could make for a great ESL instructor, though, is somebody that has lived through that type of experience. So have you noticed being able to take some of those experiences and translate that into how you're communicating with your students in your ESL class?
Yeah, I think a lot. So I am not good at learning language. So that's the thing. It's like, I don't know why I decided for my life it's going to be multicultural and have a mother-in-law who doesn't speak English.
There you go.
But I am really not proficient at learning languages. And so I think now as an instructor, okay, why is it so hard for me? What's hard? And then how can I help my students do better? And this is really just like the first round. So there are more things I want to implement. But I think about how fast you can move from one thing to the next, and especially when you're a beginner and being like, I can't memorize 40 words every day.
Right.
And it's not, like you said, sterile, but it still looks like a classroom.
Yeah.
And so I feel that it would be nice if there was a way to maybe incorporate the furniture in a more comfortable way. Like we have like the desks and the chairs, and I just want them to feel like they're in this together, because a lot of times they don't really always sit next to each other if like the classroom isn't full. And then they can definitely like feel like they can tune out or not engage with everyone. But when we do things where they're actually in like close proximity, they're laughing, they're chatting, we're doing games and stuff, and they enjoy that. So I would like to figure out a way to make them physically closer, so that they can look at each other and like have the human connection, and then get over those fears of talking, because I'll assign them, okay, get into pairs and ask each other these questions and have like a pretend conversation. But if they're doing it from across the room, it's not. I'm like, hey guys,
over there.
But something like that.
But I like what you said. It doesn't give them an opportunity to figure out they can zone out.
Yes.
And kids are the exact same way. Like if it doesn't cross their mind, then sometimes they don't do it.
Yeah.
So like, despite what a lot of people think, kids don't wake up and think, how can I make my teacher's life or my peer's life the worst today at school? Like, how can I go to school and be the worst? Like, that's not kids. 9 times out of 10, when they go to school, that's not what's in their minds, right? It could be a number of different things, but setting up and designing the space in such a way where you don't even have an opportunity to make yourself small.
Yes. Yeah.
Is such a beautiful thing, because the environment can help with like academic outcomes 100%, but it also helps with self-determination, self-actualization, self-identity in the space. So we know just from studying neurodivergent younger kids as they grow up and evolve, especially their communication skills, we know that how they relate to the space happens even before how they relate to another person. Yeah. So if they can relate positively to the space and experience that and relate that back to self, they're going to have a more positive process of relating to another human.
I see that so much in myself and my sister, because I'm neurotypical and my sister is ADHD, and you can see it in the way that she grew up with not enjoying education, and I love education, and then you can see it then in our rooms.
Oh yeah.
So we just live so oppositely. But yeah, I feel with Jessie, I'm assuming, and just like from chatting with her, she thrives so much more when the space is free and she's able to just let it be and experience the learning and the fun without having to be like, oh, everything has to be organized. And like, she thrives in allowing her mind and her body just
to wander.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I think talking about like language learning, different age groups, neurotypical versus neurodivergent, that's like a lot of different things. And what's crazy is you can have all of that happening all at once in a first grade classroom down the block. Like,
Yeah.
you can have all of those complexities happening all at the same time, and maybe only have 1 or 2 adults in the room for the duration of the whole day.
Yeah.
And then there's a slew of expectations, right, on those educators of, you have to reach these deliverables by X date, and also these are all the things happening in your space.
I don't know how teachers do it.
It's a lot, right? Thank you, teachers.
Yes.
No, it's a lot, but at the same time, all the more reason to consider the overall vibe of an environment, because you are attempting to reach and connect with so many variations of needs in this. And I did TESOL, teaching English as a second language overseas for a handful of years. So I lived in Hungary and I taught kids in Hungary, and it was very much Tarzan talk, because that's what you do. It's very much Tarzan talk, but we spent a great deal of time just moving in our space. Like, you play games, you make actions with your bodies, you make a lot of weird noises. You do all the things that you can in your space to try to, relate to one another and communicate what you're communicating. And I think of your son, who is not very old, but has already experienced school in both cultural scenarios. So how did you observe him in those 2 different types of environments? Like, what was the vibe in each environment?
Yeah.
How did he respond to each environment? And what did that transition look like?
Yeah. So the first school he went to was a school in Jordan, and it was just for a few months, but it was more of like a daycare preschool thing, because it was ages 2 to 5.
Okay.
And so it's very kid friendly. It's not like when you walk into a school here and it has kid things, but it's, it has to also be professional in a way. So the daycare, I remember, was very fun. It had, he had a classroom, but then there was also a giant open meeting room, which is cool. Where I believe they would go in for fun things. Like, they would do like singing and dancing in the big space. I guess it would be like the equivalent of a gym, but fits more appropriately their size in number and their bodies.
Oh, okay.
So it was fun, and they had a playground outside, which was a very fun playground. It wasn't like, it had like a nice grassy area and equipment and stuff. And he really liked this school a lot, and he really liked the teacher. And I think that the teacher set up her classroom in a way where there was tables on the outside, but mainly they're just sitting on the rug doing like the carpet time stuff.
Okay.
And so it makes them feel close together and safe. And in comparison to the school where he went to in Lebanon, which was just a few months later, it was much more, even though he was only 3, it was much more like classroom style, where they had like, they're so tiny, but they had more like individualized desks. And the space also was really tight. Like, there was, it should not have been that many students with desks and chairs in that size. And they didn't really have a play area. They didn't have a meeting area. And they just had like a common playground outside, but it was also not the best type of playground, where it's just like, it was cement and some like monkey bars and stuff. So it's not very fun. And he did not like that school.
Oh,
so.
That's a really big transition for such a small person to have to go, and then also to be able to process that transition. And he's at that age, right? That's also, you're a verbal sponge.
Yeah.
So you don't have all of the language to process everything.
Right.
And also, again, he's in a multicultural setting.
Yeah.
So a multi-language setting.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. I want to go back to something you highlighted that I think is very interesting. So the vibe in a lot of Western educational settings is the serious learning happens in the middle, and all of the experiential learning happens on the outside or the perimeter.
Okay.
So for example, depending on the different age groups, right, you have centers on the outside, like a writing center, a pretend play, a science center, or a sensory table, but then all of our communal tables are in the middle.
Yeah.
So we learn all of our serious things here, but we can have fun here.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is subconsciously, kids in Western educational settings, for the most part, will carry that subconscious understanding as they get older, because then in middle school, even when we put desks in pods, or when we do different activities for like a writer's block or a writer's workshop, we have everybody in pods, but it's still the serious happens in the middle.
Yeah.
And maybe we have some fun differentiated things happening on the outside.
Right.
What I really like about how you described his learning space was our togetherness, like our learning community happens here, and then you get to do the hard work here.
Right.
So it's like, let's explore, discuss, talk about, experience all together. And then individually, you're choosing kind of how to experience that elsewhere. Yeah. And I think there's a really big vibe shift in curriculum and teaching methodology in the United States, where we're moving from pedagogy to hudagogy, which is a lot of self-determined learning. It's based off of something called SDT, or self-determined theory. And an environment like that matches or correlates what we're trying to accomplish in that teaching methodology. And so if your space doesn't match what you're trying to accomplish, it's just not going to work. It's like when we were talking about Montessori. Yeah. And you can kind of have like a Montessori inspired learning space, but unless your environment is really designed fully for Montessori, we're not going to accomplish exactly what we want to accomplish. Yeah. So what happened then when you transitioned here and he's going to school now stateside? What did that look like?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting, like you said, because he's in a Montessori inspired school, but it's still New York State public school. So he's in a public school, but it's supposed to be Montessori. So his class, he's currently in kindergarten. So last year he was in pre-K. And so his class is pre-K and K together. And then as he moves up, it would be like 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
And I think that coming from a school, the Lebanon school, where it was very as if he was much older than he should have been.
Very structured.
Yeah, very structured. Very hard on him with making sure he's coloring pages right. And then coming here, and I think that the teacher has been very helpful. And so I think compared to his Lebanon experience, it's better because she is very aware of how there's all different types of children in the classroom. It's very diverse, and the space, it does have like a little bit of a communal center, but like you said, it's still not in the center. Yeah. So I think we still had struggles with his behavior last year, and I think it's really, they're in school for so long. Yeah. And it's a lot of, moving from activity to activity. Yeah. But the ultimate to me feels like the style that he was experiencing in Jordan, where they're having fun, they're learning through play, they're doing it together. Like the experience was just much more positive, I think, in that way.
Well, and I think there's also a really big misconception, in the Western education setting, the reason for the actual organization of education is to get kids ready to work. And like that's the original idea and the original projected thought and the goal. But now it's been so much more than that, and it's been very hard to corral such a large organization that systemically was created for one thing and try to like shift. How do you go from like rudimental rote learning for work, and now play-based learning is important. Yeah. Well, developmental competency is important. Yeah. And self-reflection is important. And all of these things, they weren't necessarily considered, right? So for him to go through all three of those transitions, not back to back to back, but kind of.
Almost, yeah. Yeah, you're
almost. Right. He kind of experienced all of those different like educational ideologies, like back to back to back. And now what's really cool is the shift in design and in education is becoming more experiential, discovery based, and not just for little kids. Yeah. Like for middle schoolers and high schoolers. spaces within a space for that one-on-one connection where people aren't needing to necessarily always leave the community.
Yeah.
Like, how can we create pockets? And there's a lot of people, especially in Western education, that push in, that they don't pull out, they push in. But then how do we make space for that?
Yeah.
How do we accommodate that? Right. So there's a lot of variables, but thank you for sharing your overall experience.
Thank you for having me.
I'm sure a lot of people might have some follow-up questions, so we'll ask you some of those follow-up questions. We have a couple of pour-over questions, so check those out on the recording. We want to see what your answers are, but we'll catch you next time on Coffee Talk Season 2, Episode 3. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cold coffee now.